Thank you for being here today. Let's start with a question most people never ask, but should. What if everything we've been told about aging and muscle loss is only half true? What if the idea that muscle building ends after 60 is not a biological fact, but a cultural myth? Because here's the reality. The decline in strength we often associate with aging is not inevitable. It's preventable, and in many cases, reversible. Sure, the body changes as we age. That's undeniable. Sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass, is well documented. Hormonal shifts, reduced physical activity, slower recovery, and lower appetite can all contribute. But those are variables we can influence, not absolute limits we must accept. And yet, too often, we confuse common with unchangeable. The problem is this. Most people assume that after a certain age, decline is just part of the deal. You hear phrases like, "I'm just not as strong as I used to be," or "that's what happens when you get old." Over time, these statements become beliefs. Then those beliefs shape behaviors. Less movement, fewer challenges, more caution. And suddenly, we've created the very decline we fear. But here's what we know from real-world research. Muscle growth can occur well into your 60s, 70s, and even 80s. The physiological ability to adapt to resistance, what scientists call muscle plasticity, does not disappear with age. It just becomes less forgiving and more reliant on consistency, nutrition, and intent. So let's reframe the question. Not, can older adults build muscle? But what do older adults need to do differently in order to succeed? The answer begins with understanding how muscle is built at any age. Muscle growth, or hypertrophy, is triggered by a combination of mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. When you lift weights or apply resistance in a controlled, progressive way, you create microscopic tears in your muscle fibers. Your body responds by initiating repair mechanisms that build back stronger tissue. This adaptive response includes activating satellite cells, signaling the mTOR pathway, and increasing muscle protein synthesis. Over time, assuming proper nutrition and rest, your muscles grow larger and stronger. In younger people, this process is efficient and responsive. In older adults, it's less sensitive. This is called anabolic resistance, the body's reduced responsiveness to anabolic stimuli, like resistance exercise or dietary protein. But here's the key. Resistant doesn't mean non-responsive. It means the threshold for adaptation is higher. You need to be more deliberate with your training. You need to eat smarter. And most importantly, you need to stick with it. Multiple studies have confirmed that when older adults follow a structured resistance training program, they experience significant increases in muscle size, strength, and functional ability. Gains may be slower, but they are meaningful and often life-changing. In fact, what's truly inspiring is that many older adults, people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s, show dramatic improvements in strength and muscle mass when they follow a proper training protocol. Research has shown that in some cases, their rate of relative improvement can even exceed that of younger people. Why? Because many older individuals are starting from a much lower baseline. They're undertrained, and the body, regardless of age, adapts to new demands. But these benefits don't happen by chance. They require action, consistent, progressive, and intentional. Let's talk about muscle not as something cosmetic, but as something critical, an organ system that supports everything from movement to metabolism. Muscle is deeply connected to longevity. More muscle means better insulin sensitivity, better mitochondrial health, better immune function, and better metabolic flexibility. It means lower risk of falls, fractures, hospitalization, and disease. And it's not just about how much muscle you have, it's about what you can do with it. Your grip strength, your walking speed, your ability to stand from a chair without help. These are not just fitness metrics. They're predictors of life expectancy. Studies show that people with higher levels of muscular strength live longer, healthier lives. Period. And yet, most health systems never measure strength. We check blood pressure and cholesterol, but rarely look at lean mass or functional performance. We manage the symptoms of aging, like frailty or immobility, instead of addressing the root cause: chronic underuse of the most metabolically active tissue in the body. This is why resistance training should be seen as medicine. It doesn't just prevent decline, it actively promotes resilience. It's the most powerful anti-aging tool most people aren't using. But not all movement is equal. Walking is great for your heart. Yoga is great for flexibility. But if your goal is to build or preserve muscle, you need progressive overload, resistance training that challenges your muscles beyond their current capacity. This could mean dumbbells. It could mean resistance bands, bodyweight exercises, or even machines. The tool doesn't matter as much as the principle. Create tension, push against resistance, recover, repeat. And the older you are, the more crucial this becomes. As we get older, we have to be more intentional about the way we move. Not just moving more, but moving better and with purpose. It's not about burning calories. It's about sending a clear, unmistakable signal to the body. This muscle still matters. Keep it strong. Now, let's talk about what kind of training actually works. A proper resistance training routine for older adults doesn't have to be extreme or intimidating. You don't need to bench press your body weight or perform Olympic lifts. What you do need is consistency and kontinuitet progressive challenge. That could mean lifting weights 2 to 3 times a week. It could mean doing bodyweight exercises like squats, push-ups, and planks, modified to your current ability. Resistance bands, cable machines, even water-based resistance workouts can all be effective. What matters most is that your workings are against resistance, and that resistance increases over time. If today you can do 5 squats and next month you can do 10, congratulations. That's progress. If you start lifting 5-pound dumbbells, and in a few months you're lifting 8 or 10, that's progress. These seemingly small changes accumulate. They tell your body to adapt, repair, and grow. And let's not forget about form and control. As we age, our joints may be stiffer, our balance may be a little less steady. That's why it's so important to perform movements with care, proper posture, and attention to alignment. If you're new to strength training, working with a knowledgeable coach, physiotherapist, or even following a beginner-friendly program online can help you build confidence and avoid injury. But strength doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not just about what you do in the gym. It's also about what you do outside of it. And that brings us to something often neglected in the conversation around aging and fitness: recovery. As we age, recovery becomes more important, not less. It's during sleep and rest that the real magic of muscle growth happens. The training is the stimulus, but the adaptation? That happens when you rest, refuel, and repair. Older adults often struggle with sleep, whether due to stress, hormones, or lifestyle. Poor sleep compromises recovery, which then undermines your progress in the gym. That's why managing stress, getting enough quality sleep, and creating healthy bedtime habits isn't just about energy. It's about muscle health too. And of course, we have to talk about protein. The unfortunate truth is that most older adults are not consuming nearly enough high-quality protein to support muscle maintenance, let alone muscle growth. If you're strength training but not meeting your protein needs, it's like planting seeds but never watering them. You won't see results. For optimal muscle health, aim for somewhere between 1.6 to 2.0 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. If you weigh 70 kilograms, about 154 pounds, that's roughly 112 to 140 grams of protein daily. And ideally, that protein should be spread across the day in 3 or 4 evenly spaced meals. Protein-rich foods like eggs, fish, chicken, lentils, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, and whey protein can help you hit that target without needing to overeat. The goal isn't to bulk up, it's to provide your body with the raw materials it needs to rebuild and repair muscle tissue. Even the timing of protein matters. Research suggests that consuming protein shortly after resistance training can help maximize muscle protein synthesis. So don't wait hours after your workout to eat. Try to have a balanced, protein-rich meal or shake within 60 to 90 minutes. And for those who may find it hard to hit their protein goals through food alone, supplementation, can play a key role. One of the most powerful and most misunderstood supplements in this space is creatine. Let's clear the air on this one. For many people, especially those over 60, the word creatine triggers images of bodybuilders, protein shakes, and gym bros chasing big biceps. But that stereotype misses the point completely. Creatine isn't just for athletes. It's for anyone who wants to preserve muscle, protect brain health, and age with resilience. Here's what creatine actually is: a naturally occurring compound produced in your body from amino acids like glycine and arginine. It's stored in your muscles, about 95% of it, and used to rapidly regenerate energy during short bursts of activity. It helps your muscles perform better during resistance training. But that's just the beginning. Recent research shows that creatine supplementation can enhance muscle strength, lean mass use, and some functional performance in older adults, especially when combined with resistance training. This includes improvements in walking speed, rising from a chair, and climbing stairs. These are not minor details. These are the actions that determine whether you can live independently or not. And the benefits might go beyond muscle. Emerging evidence suggests creatine may also support cognitive health. The brain, like muscle, is an energy-hungry organ. It uses creatine too. Some small studies have found that creatine supplementation may improve working memory, mental clarity, and fatigue resistance, especially under stress or sleep deprivation. While more research is needed, the biological plausibility is strong. And considering creatine's excellent safety profile, it's an option worth discussing with your doctor. Which brings us to safety, a concern many older adults understandably have. Let's be clear. Creatine is one of the most thoroughly studied supplements in the world. Dozens of long-term studies, some lasting up to 5 years, have shown that it is safe and well-tolerated in healthy individuals, including older adults. Yes, creatine may slightly elevate your creatinine levels on blood tests, but that's a normal, harmless byproduct of creatine metabolism. It's not a sign of kidney damage in otherwise healthy people. As always, if you have existing kidney disease or other chronic conditions, talk to your doctor before starting any new supplement. But if you're in good health, creatine can be an incredibly valuable, low-cost tool for supporting aging muscles. The most effective dose? Typically, 3 to 5 grams per day of creatine monohydrate. You don't need fancy versions. You don't need loading phases. Just a small daily scoop, ideally taken with food or post-workout, is enough to saturate your muscles over time. Side effects are rare. Some people may experience mild bloating or stomach discomfort at first. If that happens, try lowering the dose or splitting it into 2 smaller servings per day. Staying well hydrated also helps. Creatine isn't a magic pill, but it's one of the few supplements with decades of strong evidence behind it, and benefits that become more relevant as we age, not less. Now let's take a moment to zoom out. Why does all this matter? Why does building or maintaining muscle after 60 deserve this level of attention? Because muscle is far more than just a tool for movement. It is a critical determinant of how we age. It influences our stability, our metabolism, our immune response, and even our independence. When we talk about getting older, we often frame it in terms of loss, losing speed, strength, agility, energy. But here's the truth that doesn't get emphasized enough. Much of that loss is avoidable. Not through luck, not through genetics, but through deliberate, consistent action. One of the most dangerous myths around aging is the idea that weakness and frailty are inevitable. That one day, you simply wake up and you can't get out of a chair without using your hands. That stairs are suddenly too hard. That balance just goes. But these aren't automatic consequences of age. They are symptoms of underuse. When you don't challenge a system, Whether it's muscle, balance, coordination, or confidence, it weakens. And if you accept that decline as your fate, you become passive. You give up your agency. You become a spectator in your own life. But here's what happens when you resist that story, when you challenge it through movement. You start climbing stairs without holding the railing. You carry your own groceries again. You lift your grandchild with confidence. You feel less pain, more control, and a growing sense of physical autonomy. That's not just physical health. That's dignity, that's freedom. And it's achievable at 60, 70, 80, and beyond. But we need to change how we think about aging. We need to shift from a model of passive decline to one of yin proactive resilience. Let me introduce a concept that captures this mindset shift. I call it the centenarian decathlon. This is not about winning medals or running marathons. It's about preparing for the physical challenges that matter most later in life. Can you carry a suitcase into the overhead bin? Can you get off the floor without using your hands? Can you walk up a flight of stairs while holding something? Can you rise from a chair quickly without pushing off? These are your real-life events, and if you want to be able to perform them at 85, you need to train for them at 65. Think of it like this. Every rep you do today, every set, every step outside your comfort zone, that's a deposit in your future independence account. Now let's talk about lean programming. Because knowing that resistance training is essential is one thing. Doing it the right way is another. A smart, age-appropriate training plan doesn't mean easy. It means safe, effective, and progressive. Start with 2 to 3 full-body sessions per week. These workouts can be as short as 30 to 45 minutes. Focus on movements that work multiple muscle groups. Squats or sit-to-stands. Hip hinges like deadlifts or glute bridges. Push movements like wall push-ups or dumbbell presses. Pull movements like rows or resistance band pulls. Carries or loaded walks. You don't need fancy equipment. What you need is effort. Controlled, intentional effort that challenges you just enough to stimulate adaptation. And remember, the principle of progression is non-negotiable. You must gradually increase the difficulty. That can be through more weight, more reps, slower tempo, or more challenging variations. If your workout today feels exactly the same as it did a month ago, your body has no reason to change. The goal isn't to push to exhaustion. The goal is to provide a challenge your body isn't yet fully prepared for. Then give it the resources to adapt. Speaking of resources, let's circle back to our recovery. Many people, especially in later life, underestimate how important recovery truly is. We live in a culture that glorifies hustle and grind. But when it comes to muscle health, recovery is not a break from progress. It is the progress. Make sure you're sleeping 7 to 9 hours per night whenever possible. Deep, uninterrupted sleep is when the majority of muscle repair and hormonal regulation takes place. Nutrition, as we've discussed, also plays a central role. Without sufficient protein and calories, your body simply doesn't have the building blocks to create new muscle tissue. Hydration is another overlooked aspect. Muscles are about 75% water. Dehydration impairs performance, delays recovery, and increases the risk of cramps and injury. Especially in older adults, thirst cues can become weaker, so don't wait until you feel thirsty. Drink consistently throughout the day. Another key piece of the puzzle is mobility and joint care. As you strength train, pay attention to your joints and range of motion. Incorporate warm-ups that focus on dynamic movement, arm circles, leg swings, body weight squats, and don't neglect mobility work after your sessions. Foam rolling, stretching, or gentle yoga can go a long way in keeping you limber and pain-free. Remember, your goal isn't just to be stronger, it's to move better, to feel more confident in your body, to reduce stiffness, to restore control. And that brings us to a deeper point, one that's often missed. Resistance training is not just a physical practice, it's a psychological one. There is something incredibly empowering about picking up a weight, challenging yourself, and getting just a little better each week. It builds self-efficacy. It changes your relationship with discomfort. It teaches you, over and over again, that your limits are not fixed. This mindset carries over into every area of your life. You start solving problems differently. You walk a little taller. You stop defining yourself by your birth year and start defining yourself by your capability. That's the kind of transformation that can't be measured in inches or pounds, but it's real, and it's powerful. So if you've ever caught yourself saying, "I'm too old for this," let me challenge you to change that sentence. Say instead, "I've waited long enough." Say, "Now is my time." Because the truth is, the best time to start resistance training was 30 years ago. The second best time is, right now. And here's the really exciting part. You don't have to do this alone. There are thousands of communities, online and offline, supporting older adults on this exact path. Trainers who specialize in aging populations. Gyms that offer small group classes tailored to 60+. Friends, family, neighbors who would love to join you on the journey. You don't need to become a fitness expert overnight. You just need to start about wherever you are, with whatever you have. Because the more you move, the more you build. And the more you build, the more options you preserve. That's the true gift of muscle. It's not about how you look in the mirror. It's about what you're able to do and how long you can keep doing it. That's why I say this with complete sincerity. Muscle is not optional. It is your armor. It is your engine. It is your personal retirement plan for your body. And there is no better time to invest than now. Let's end with something practical and powerful. A reminder of what's possible when you make the choice to move your body with purpose, even after 60. Because this isn't just about lifting weights. It's about lifting your potential. If you start training consistently, just 2 to 3 times per week, you will notice changes. Your energy will improve. Tasks that once seemed tiring or intimidating will feel manageable again. Your posture will improve. Your balance will sharpen. Your confidence will rise. And perhaps most importantly, you'll start to feel like your body is once again an asset, not a liability. That transformation may begin slowly. You might feel awkward or unsure at first, but those first sessions, they're not about perfection. They're about permission. The permission you give yourself to begin. Because you are not broken. You are not too late. You are not done. You are capable of building strength, of regaining control, of aging with power. Now, let's briefly talk about the kind of results you can expect and the timeline. In as little as 4 to 6 weeks, most older adults experience improvements in strength, energy, and mobility. These might be small at first. Getting up from a chair without using your hands, walking faster, feeling steadier on stairs. But they matter. Over the next 3 to 6 months, those results grow. You'll build more lean mass, lose some body fat, increase bone density, and perform more reps or heavier loads than you ever thought possible. You'll feel younger, not because of magic, but because of momentum. And over the long term, 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, you're preserving your independence. You're creating a foundation that helps you avoid the hospital, recover faster from illness or injury, and live on your own terms. That's not hype. That's science. That's what the data shows, over and over again. Now let's talk to the people who still feel unsure. The ones who say, "But I've never lifted weights before. I have arthritis. I'm afraid I'll get hurt." These are valid concerns, but they're also addressable. The key is starting where you are. There are always safe and effective ways to train, no matter your physical limitations. If you have joint issues, there are resistance band programs and machine-based circuits designed to minimize stress on your joints. If you're intimidated by the gym, start at home. Bodyweight exercises like wall sits, modified push-ups, and step-ups are highly effective. If you're worried about injury, know this. Properly performed resistance training, reduces your risk of injury in everyday life. It strengthens your connective tissue, improves your balance, and enhances your reaction time, helping you avoid the kinds of slips and falls that can devastate quality of life. And if you're just unsure where to begin, ask for help. Reach out to a trainer who understands older populations. Join a beginner's group. Watch online tutorials from qualified experts. You don't need all the answers today. You just need to start moving. Also, don't underestimate the power of Xianpan's community. Aging can sometimes feel isolating, but resistance training connects people. It creates shared goals. It builds friendships. It's not just about sets and reps. It's about reclaiming a sense of belonging and purpose. Let's not forget the mental health benefits. Resistance training has been shown to reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, improve cognitive function, and increase feelings of autonomy and control. And at this stage in life, that kind of empowerment is priceless. One final myth to dismantle before we close: the idea that resistance training is about chasing youth. It's not. It's about maximizing what's possible, right now, so you can live with more ease, more energy, and more freedom. Because here's the truth: you're not trying to be 25 again. You're trying to be strong enough to carry your groceries, to get off the floor, to play with your grandkids, to travel, to recover from illness, and to wake up each morning knowing your body is still working. For you, not against you. Muscle is not just a physical asset. It's an emotional one, a mental one, a spiritual one. When you train your muscles, you're training your mindset, your ability to face discomfort, to persist through challenge, to adapt and grow. And that resilience doesn't stop at the gym. It becomes who you are. So if you take one thing away from this entire message, let it be this: the window for change is still open. You are never too old. You are never too late. And you are not powerless in how you age. Strength is a choice. It is earned through effort, consistency, and care. And it pays dividends in every area of life. The best part? You don't need perfection. You need progress. You don't need a perfect body. You need a body that shows up for you. And you don't need to believe in miracles. You just need to believe in your next rep, your next session, your next step forward. So if you're 60, 70, or even 80 years old and wondering if it's worth it, it is. Start small, start slow, but start stacks, because the strongest version of you still exists.